Donald Trump has made the first big unforced error of his second term in office. Let's go through it. Okay, so this is somewhat complicated. On Monday night, the Office of Management and Budget, which basically oversees the management and budget of the federal government, put out a memo in which it said all grants and loans, all federal grants and loans, so all federal money would be frozen until the administration had done a sort of soup to nuts examination of where that money was being spent, particularly if it was being spent on programs that are quote unquote woke or diverse equity and inclusion programs, both of which Donald Trump has signed executive orders designed to rid the federal government of spending that money. Okay. Chaos immediately ensued because if you add up federal grants and loans, you're talking about more than $3 trillion with a T, dollars. It's massive. It covers everything, school lunches and food stamps and Medicaid and, huge, vast sums of state and federal budgets are affected by this. By Tuesday, a federal judge has basically put a stay on it, saying we're not going to do this yet. So nothing went into effect. And by Wednesday afternoon, in a very short memo, the acting director of the Office of Management and Budget said that the freeze had been rescinded. Now, this is a flip-flop. This is a 36-hour, 180-degree turn in positions. We were freezing federal funds, and now we are not freezing federal funds. Easy for me to say. And I think the question here is, why did they do this? Did they not understand the implications financially and otherwise? I mean, many of these programs that get federal grant money are very popular in a bipartisan way. Did they think that it would not be as far-reaching? Was this done on a whim? Was this part of a plan? And the reason that I ask all these questions is because what it reminds me most of, candidly, is 8 years ago when Donald Trump came into office and clearly didn't really know what he was doing, how to do it to the extent he wanted to do specific things, or who he could trust to implement some of these things that he wanted to do. And it was a little bit of a clown car, particularly in the first 2 years. They would put the Trump administration in the first term would put things out. They'd have to take them back. They'd have to clarify them. Sometimes it would get overturned legally. And I'll note, they're not the only people who've had this. Joe Biden kept, during his term, trying to cancel student loan debt, and the courts overturned it again and again. So Trump's not the only one this happened to, but in his first term, it happened a lot. And so what's interesting is that he clearly learned from that, because his first week in office in his second term was very efficient. Now, this isn't a commentary on the policies he put in place via executive order. It's just a commentary on he and his people clearly had a plan. They knew the places in the government they wanted to look. They knew the laws, and they knew what they could do within those structures. Very different than what we saw 8 years ago. And some people will call it brutally efficient if you disagree with Donald Trump's policies. But what was clear in the first week is they were operating off of a blueprint. They had a plan. They were putting these things into place, and you could like them or you could hate them, but they were doing it. And this feels like a total abandonment of that. What I've been thinking of, honestly, what it reminds me most of is a football team. I'll give you a specific example in a minute. A football team who is running the ball up the middle and getting 8, 10, 12 yards every play. And then all of a sudden they decide, you know what? Let's run a trick play. Let's run an end around. Let's run a flea flicker. Let's run a play where the halfback option where somebody other than the quarterback throws the ball. It reminds me of the Lions-Commanders game in the NFC divisional round, where the Lions are just crushing the Commanders on the ground over and over and over again. And offensive coordinator Ben Johnson decides to go to a trick play where a wide receiver, Jameson Williams, throws the ball. And Williams, who's not a quarterback, slings it into double coverage, interception, game momentum turns. Commanders win, Lions lose. It's like, why didn't you just keep running it? Because you were crushing them with the run. That's kind of what I felt like when I witnessed this 36-hour, 180-degree flip-flop by Trump and his administration on freezing federal loans and grants. It's like you were efficiently matriculating the ball down the field, to continue the football metaphor. And then all of a sudden you decided we're going to do this crazy trick play and see if it works. And breaking news, it didn't work. So what do we make of all this? What's our takeaway? I mean, look, Donald Trump is going to do everything in his power, which is a lot, to defund, take away any funding from the federal government to programs that support things that he describes as woke policies on transgender, on education, those sorts of things, as well as zero out diversity, equity, and inclusion, jobs, and roles within the federal government. He will continue to do that. Will he try to reform all federal spending and grants and loans? No, I don't think he will. I don't know. Again, I'm really interested to know what the thinking was behind this, because it doesn't make any sense that he would involve himself in this. First of all, Congress, not the executive branch. Congress is the chamber or the body, the branch of government that allocates the money that the government spends, not the executive branch. But it is in keeping generally with Donald Trump's desire to make the executive branch all powerful, right? We've seen this. There's going to be more and more of this. But it's a weird misstep for a team that looked like they had fixed a lot of the problems that plagued them in the first term, strategically, politically, policy-wise, and legally. And I don't know if this is Trump on a whim. I don't know if this is something kind of got through or the language was imprecisely written and it wound up being more broad than it should have been. There's a million things I think we'll learn about how this happened. But that it happened, I think, does raise questions of, is there a blueprint they are operating off of? Does it go beyond a week, right? Is there to go back to football, do they call the first 15 plays of the game or do they have the whole game basically mapped out? How much of this is Trump operating from the seat of his pants? Why was this error made? I don't know the answers to all those questions yet, and no one does because we're still 9 days into Donald Trump's term. But it is an unforced error. They did screw up. There is no question about that. I wanted to make this video because my pledge to you guys is when big news happens that you need to have broken down, analyzed, and told you what matters and what doesn't, that's where I come in. So I'm always going to make time to make videos when that situation arises, as it did today. I ask you 4 things. 1, subscribe to this channel. 2, like this video. 3, comment on this video. And 4, tell your friends about what I'm doing here. We have momentum. Independent journalism is growing by leaps and bounds on YouTube and a lot of other places too. But I need your support. I need you to tell people what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I am independent. I am authentic. I am transparent. And I will always be honest with you, tell you why I think what I think, and I'm not owned and operated by anybody other than myself. It's just me. No corporate donors behind me, no big media overlords, no billionaires, just me. So I hope that you can get on board, and thanks.